we put together like, okay, here's our pitch. And I was like, you know what? I don't think now's the right time. Like, we have to make sure everything's like going well. I was kind of dragging my feet, mostly because I was afraid of rejection. And he was like, come on, let's just like go get our feet wet. Let's get feedback from 3 people, 3 conversations, and we'll get feedback and see if we have something. And then we did that and it went well. And those 3 conversations turned into 9 conversations that turned into, and it just started to multiply so quickly that it was like, okay, this is happening. Like, you either get on the saddle or you leave the stadium. And so we just went for it.
Yo. My name is Jonathan Steers. My co-host is Doug Diakite, and we welcome you to Find Your Freedom, the best entrepreneurship podcast. Being an entrepreneur is hard. That's why we created findyourfreedompod.com to compile all the resources you need to find your own freedom. Today, we are joined by Nichols, the founder of Getaway, a real estate company whose goal is to empower real estate entrepreneurs to build portfolios without having to come up with all the money up front. We are super happy to be on today, Ali. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Welcome to the podcast, Ali.
Ali, I have to start by saying your resume is out of control. I was going through doing our research for the pod today, and I was just like, Uber, IBM, a successful competitor to Airbnb, and then now you founded your own company. Which stop along the way was the most fun for you?
Oh, gosh. It's hard to pick one experience, but I definitely think that earlier in my career, so I started at IBM. IBM has, I believe it's like 400,000 employees globally. It's a huge corporation. It's been around for over 100 years. But I was living in San Francisco at the time, and everyone in my social group was at a startup or at, a younger tech company. I was like, oh, how do I get into that? And at the time, it was right as Uber was becoming more popular. Like, people were actually starting to talk about it. They had just launched like UberX, and I was like, that company's changing the world. Like, I want to work there. And so I did everything in my power to try and get a job at Uber, which included like 50 application attempts and getting rejected like over 50 times. But finally a team took a chance on me at Uber, and I ended up in the doors. And that just changed, I think, the trajectory of my career forever, because I went from, old school, big corporation to, this company that only been around for, a couple years, if that, at that point. And
yeah, that is a significant.
Yeah, what a huge
shift.
It was
crazy. It was a crazy shift. And I was surrounded by all of these people that were so excited to be there and like really behind the mission and what they were working on, and like really felt like owners of the company. And I was like, oh, this is what it should be like. Like, this is the type of environment. These are the type of people that I want to surround myself with the rest of my career. And since then, I've just gone smaller and smaller, earlier and earlier to now, having started my own real estate tech company with my co-founder. And so it's like that building and being around folks that want to change, an industry or solve a problem for the masses, like that is just, it's a special place. So I think, I won't say it's my favorite because there's too many favorites to pick, but I think it was one of the most pivotal in like my career journey.
That's such an interesting response. I'm going to roll right with what you said, because that was one of the questions that I wanted to get to right off the bat. All right. So your current startup, Getaway, most companies start, from my experience, they see a problem in the world and they're like, I want to solve this problem. And I was reading through your website, and your website gave such a cool description of solving a problem. And I wanted to share it and then get your take on it. As the largest asset class in the world, real estate has been both a hallmark of the American dream and a primary path to building wealth, which is something that we've heard like over and over and over again on this podcast. But for younger generations, that opportunity is increasingly out of reach. And I was just like, wow, like this is something that I hear weekly in just conversations with friends or other business associates. It's just like how real estate's so crazy and how like the threshold to get into it is impossible now. And how this is like, oh, we missed the bus. We're 10 years late. Like, this isn't just a thing for me. And your company, like right on the website, it's just, here's a big problem. Here's something that everyone's talking about. And you guys are cracking that problem. I love that. Can you kind of expand on how this all came about?
Yeah. So previously, before we started Getaway, my co-founder and I were both at another real estate startup called Bungalow. And we had the opportunity of essentially that business model had transformed into becoming a operator for institutional capital. So think pension funds, hedge funds, the people that control all the money out there to buy single family rentals. That's become a new asset class in the real estate space over the last, call it 10, 15 years that people are really excited about. But and Doug, you can speak to this all day long because I know this is right up your alley, but the actual going out and sourcing, acquiring, running a transaction, and then managing those assets is not something a hedge fund has a team to do, but they want exposure to the asset class. So that's where we would come in and we'd run that whole process.
Got it. Okay.
Where I saw the opportunity and kind of like felt the pain myself is like, so I run a team that does this. I have like built all the processes and like product to do so, but like I can't go out and build my own portfolio because I don't have access to the capital that, obviously these institutions do from not only an equity side or like a down payment side for those listening, but also the debt. So how can we help? How can we build products that help more individuals be able to access this type of asset class and start building wealth?
Right.
And that was like the idea that I got obsessed with is like, just how do I help a normal American build their own real estate portfolio with all the knowledge that I've gained.
Yeah, talking about looking for like a market with a big pain point. Like this is a pain point like such a huge number of people have, like either even if just their own home, but also like everyone's always been told the best way to build wealth is like getting in real estate. And everyone's like, well, I don't have $1 million, so I guess I can't get into real estate. Yeah. And you're like, oh, here's a solution for you. I got it. I just created it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So are you guys targeting and trying to specifically help aspiring investors or owner-occupant home buyer clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are solely focused on investors, meaning I'm going out to buy rental property to then rent out to others and build that up as, whether you want to call it a side hustle, whether you want to make that your future business. The majority of our customers view real estate as their future retirement. And I think one major shift that we've seen and we feel really strongly about is the idea of the American dream is shifting. If you think about 20, 30 years ago, if you bought a house, you lived there for 30 years, you probably built up enough equity to retire on that. Like, I believe the stat is like 86% of the average American's retirement comes from the equity in their home, which is a crazy, crazy thought.
Yeah,
but
it's nuts.
Nowadays, isn't it wild? Nowadays, me, I'm in my early 30s. I live in a major metro. Like, the starter houses in my area, or if you like live in the Bay Area, for example, we're talking about $1 million just to get into, 800 square feet. Like that's not even enough over time to have a family. And so where we see a lot of traction and the shift is folks are saying, okay, I can't actually buy what makes sense for me where I work and live, but there's an opportunity to buy real estate potentially in other states or other markets that I can start building this business around. That business over time will start paying me, help me maybe subsidize my living cost in X market. And then I'm building equity for my future retirement, to pass down to my children. Like the same equity build can still happen. It just looks different than it being your primary home right outside of the city. So that's really the trend that we're seeing and trying to help folks achieve.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, for me personally, I just bought my first primary residence 2 years ago and had already purchased hundreds of homes all over the country before even just being able to buy my own home for my family. So yeah, there you go. So I feel that.
You're living the thesis.
Yeah, exactly.
Living proof that your business will work. This is going to go big.
I believe. So now that we have an understanding about the company and what you guys are doing to help folks out there start their real estate portfolios, at what point at Bungalow, you said you started at the biggest company out there, the Goliath, the IBM, and slowly worked to the smaller, earlier stage companies and took that to the ultimate end, which is starting your own. So at Bungalow, at what point did you start at Bungalow with the idea that let me work here for a few years and then I'm going to start my own thing? Or was it you're at Bungalow for a couple of years and starting to think, maybe I can do something similar myself?
It's a great question. I think my whole life, I've always thought the end goal is like working for yourself. I was super fortunate to see my dad had a solo business growing up. So your parents are your heroes. I'm like, that's what success looks like. That's what I want to do. So I had that deep in the back of my head, but then, entering into this, tech industry and world, I didn't quite know until I was in these startups that like, oh, there's a path where like, if you're, become an expert in a certain area and can come up with a cool idea that can help change the lives of a lot of people or have a lot of customers, like you can actually go fundraise for that. And so I think my time at Bungalow, because it was smaller, I joined them. They were at seed stage at the time, like less than 10 employees. And then I stayed through Series C. I got to see firsthand how that all worked and kind of the behind the curtain of like the venture backed world in that sense, and built the confidence to say like, oh, like maybe I could do this. Like, so let's go out and try. But I think I had to go through that experience to learn about it.
Yeah. So you got to peek behind the curtain or got to open up the kimono, as they say. So let's talk about that period where you said you're kind of building your confidence. You're watching this happen from a company that you joined of 10 people all the way through into the fundraising stages. How did that process of building the confidence play out all the way up until you made the final decision that you're going to go and pursue your dream of starting the company? Yeah.
So the biggest thing, and anyone who's listening that's like thinking about that someday they want to, go down the path of a venture, raising venture capital, I would like highly recommend them working at an early stage startup because you get this experience. But I would say for me, it was like, okay, you're on a really small team. Everyone's kind of in a lot of ways doing everything, and then getting the opportunity to just build so many different skill sets. The nature of my role and like what I kind of found out that I was good at is finding a problem and fixing it. And when you're at a startup, you get to do that across the board. Like, so for me, it was like, oh, I got to work on, building a sales function. I saw a market opportunity, so I was able to launch a new product. We needed to build out a better customer support org. So got to set that up and learn that. Was working on like, okay, what do our legal documents and contracts need to look like? How do we interface with product? What is the tech we need to build to deliver on these things? So you just get such a well-rounded view of a business, and going from like 0 to 1 and 1 to 10 and 10 to 100, that it's such an invaluable experience, like especially if you want to go that direction, that it's more just like reps and seeing how something's built and then being able to have your hands in like so many different pieces of the puzzle.
So you built all those skills out. And I think that's a great advice that you just shared, which is to get into a small startup and have the visibility to see what the decision makers are doing. And again, going back to all the, not just the behind the scenes of watching, but actually doing and building those skills through your own reps. So the decision, so, you're building confidence, you're building skills, but at a certain point, there's a critical time where you have to make that decision. And it is scary, even if you feel some confidence and even if you feel like you're ready and you want to try it, there's still that fear that we have to overcome. So what was that like for you? Were you fearless? Or did you kind of feel a little conflicted? And how did you overcome?
She looks pretty fearless. She looks pretty fearless. I don't know.
Oh my God, so much self-doubt. I had to give shout out and props to my co-founder because, we were working on ideas and we got really excited about one permutation and things just started to happen. He was like, let's test this. Let's test demand. And then we put together like, okay, here's our pitch. And I was like, you know what? I don't think now's the right time. Like, we have to make sure everything's like going well. I was kind of dragging my feet, mostly because I was afraid of rejection. And he was like, come on, let's just like go get our feet wet. Let's get feedback from, let's put our idea in front of a few people and like 3 conversations, and we'll get feedback and see if we have something.
Baby steps.
And then we did. Yeah, baby steps. And we did that and it went well. And those 3 conversations turned into 9 conversations that turned into, and it just started to multiply so quickly that it was like, okay, this is happening. Like, you either get on the saddle or you leave the stadium. And so we just went for it. But I was very hesitant. I think the biggest thing is like the fear of rejection. It's like you put your heart and soul into something and your ego and like your pride, because I think we all care so much about what we do or you wouldn't be in this space. So getting out there and hearing people say you're crazy is not easy. I think when we were fundraising, we talked to, a lot of different firms and heard a lot of no's, but we also heard some yeses, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, throw out a net. I love that. And I love how you're speaking directly to the audience. Like, I think it's great to hear you say, like, you got to go get the experience firsthand. And I think that people may be hearing that and being like, you know what? I'm not in the Bay and I'm not, I don't have the opportunity to work at Uber or any of these startups. And they think like they just kind of write off that advice. But when I'm hearing that, I'm thinking how applicable it is to every person, no matter what niche or industry you want to get into. Like, if you have an interest in hotels, go get some experience in a hotel. If you want experience in real estate, you can go get into real estate. There's an open door into every industry. And if you think you want to eventually start a company in that industry, you got to go start getting experience in it. And I think that, I want to make sure that the audience isn't brushing off what you're saying just because where you were was, obviously in, what everyone dreams about, this, watching the Uber movie and thinking like, oh yeah, like I'm not. It's like your advice is so applicable universally. And I think,
totally.
I think it's important that people hear that. Yeah.
You will know the problem you're solving so much better if you have that experience. Like, and you'll have so many more insights than just going into something cold. So it's like, it's worth it even to be a better entrepreneur in your field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we hear that over and over on this podcast is like, how do you expect to be good at doing these things or to be able to appropriately manage these problems if you haven't gone out and done it? A lot of our audience, when we get feedback or when we get comments and notes on things, it's like, oh, well, I'm just in a job that I kind of hate and I'm just buying my time. And it's like, if you're buying your time, you're wasting time. Like, go get into something that even if you're not making a ton of money doing it, you're learning a shitload. Like, go learn at everywhere you are and make the best of that situation. I have a bunch of mentees. It's like, that's probably the most common thing I say to them is like, get experience and suck up as much knowledge as you can from every opportunity. And it sounds like just, from your story that you've told us already, it's like you were in every opportunity, just like sucking up, like, what experience can I get from this? How can I learn from these people? And like really like making the most of every moment. And I think that's such an important piece of getting, setting yourself up for success. So I wanted to follow up and say you've gotten this front row seat to all these incredible companies. What is it that you're bringing from that experience into your own baby now? What is like your goals and what is your real learnings that you're like, this is how I want to raise my new baby company?
That's funny. There's definitely, from seeing these companies, like the DNA or the culture of the company that I really resonate with, and or companies I've worked with that I'm trying to bring into Getaway are really around this idea of we're going to go out there and out execute everyone. When it comes down to it, I think one thing that's core to who we are is our execution ability and speed of implementation. One thing that we do a really good job of is if something's not working, we pivot and we move quickly on that and are really, don't fall in love with your own idea too much because it's going to change 10 times over. That's something that we've learned and have been really good at adapting to. And especially right now, we're a consumer business. The economy is a little shaky. Interest rates are the highest we've seen in a very, very, very long time, at least in my adult lifetime too.
Right.
And so being adaptable to that and understanding what are the areas that, and levers in your control and how do we stay on top of that are all things that are really important. And then I think just in general, bringing, hiring really smart people that are really invested in what you're doing and then also treating them very well is something that's very important to me.
Yeah. I think that's huge. And I also sort of, as you were talking, I was thinking back through your resume again, and it seems like you've kind of spent a similar amount of time at each of the companies. And I was wondering if that's something you would advise our audience to also do, kind of don't stay somewhere too long, or do you think that happened intentionally, or that was just where the opportunities were?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more just been opportunity based. My time at Uber, Uber grew so fast. It was, I believe when I joined, it was 1,500 people. And when I left, we were 17,000. So that's a different company. That is just completely a different company. And then very similar to my time, I definitely spent the most time at Bungalow, close to 5 years. And again, I joined and we were a seed stage, everybody was in a room. There's 8 of us to when I left, it was a well-established Series C company with a few hundred people and a game plan. And it was less solving, or developing, here's the new thing we need to do. It was more okay, we got it. Now let's execute, turn this baby into a profitable machine and keep going. So for me, I've realized I love being in this space where we're innovating. We're trying to figure it out. We're kind of trying to find the product market fit and figure out how to scale something. And then once it gets to that scaled piece, it's a little bit less fun. It's more of the machine. So I think I'll probably spend the majority of my career in this early stage. So to answer your question, I think it's kind of your own journey at that point.
Yeah. Just kind of following the opportunities where they are, figuring out what works for you and your own personal circumstances. One of the things you mentioned earlier that kind of stuck out was when I asked you about the scary decision to start your own company. You gave shout out to your co-founder, your partner. And, we've had a lot of entrepreneurs on this show that have gone it alone. And then we've had many that have that ride or die partner, like myself, and my cousin Jonathan has 2 wonderful partners. And so there's no one right way to do it when it comes to deciding if you're going to go it alone or go with a partner. But I'm curious, it sounds like he kind of got you over the hump in terms of overcoming the fear and starting the company. What do you feel like you bring to the partnership, and what do you rely on from your partner to bring to the partnership?
Yeah. It's a great question. Um, so we balance each other out in a really great way because my superpowers are really around the business side and thinking through like, okay, what can this turn into? How are we going to like make it happen from a conceptual perspective? And then like, let's go execute and like really run at that across sales, marketing, legal, all of the kind of like true core business functions. And then he is incredible because he can take that and like actually translate it and turn it into a real like technology or technical product.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, it's pretty amazing. And so from there, like we're like kind of peanut butter and jelly in that sense. But yes, I think I'm the real estate nerd. I love the space. I really, really, really like love to spend time with our customers and understand their pain points and like what is the problem we're actually solving and how we can do that better. And then he's really been amazing at helping me translate that into an actual product from a tech perspective where we can be faster and we can process more customers and we can do things that you couldn't just do with like an all human sales team, let's say. And so that's been like a really great combination.
Peanut butter and jelly is really good.
Jelly, yeah.
I love the peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, the yin and the yang. And did you guys kind of identify those things coming in, or did that kind of just evolve and you start working and figuring out where his strengths and weaknesses lie and where yours lie?
Yeah, we kind of got to cheat because we were doing this before. So at our previous company, we worked together and it was a very similar relationship. And so it just kind of carried on. Like you knew what you were getting when we started, but it was so funny. We never talked about starting a company together. We never were like, oh, you own that, you own that. It just truly happened so organically. Like we were working on, normal business stuff. And then on the weekends, we'd work on side projects just because it was fun and we enjoyed doing it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're doing it. Like we were never like, oh, we're going to start this company. What are we going to do? How are we going to structure it? It literally just happened. I think back to that. I'm like, is that normal? I don't think that's normal.
Well, I was going to say, it's like really refreshing to hear, when a partnership's working really well, like yours is. And I feel the same way about mine. I mean, when it's working well and it's a good partnership and both people are bringing a lot of, a lot of value and enjoying working with one another, it's a beautiful thing. Cause you hear so many horror stories about partnerships and, oh, this person stole money from me. This person's lazy. They don't do what they say they're going to do. And there's so many different ways that it can go wrong. But when it works and the two people are on the same page, bringing a ton of value, it's a beautiful thing. So I want to kind of transition, get to understand a little bit more about how you've gotten to where you are. When we talk to guests about, where did they go to learn? You've already talked about all the learnings that you had from working at the startups and watching them grow from a tiny company into these behemoth rocket ships. Where do you go for learning and development outside of working in the business and on the business?
That's a good question. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of newsletters and blog posts and things like that from people within kind of the industry and venture capital too, on what they're seeing. Luckily I'm very fortunate to have a great network of former colleagues and friends that are going through similar phases or have previously started companies that I can lean into. And then I'm a huge proponent of having an executive coach if you're in this type of position. And I have to give my coach a huge shout out because she's awesome. But that's super, super helpful in actually getting really tactical feedback about, hey, this is what's happening in the business. Here's how I'm feeling. How should I handle these situations? How do I get better? It really, a lot of that on the day-to-day stuff comes down to like better communication across the board. So if you're in that position and can get an exec coach, I would highly recommend it.
I'm curious about that with the executive coach thing. It's something that I haven't done. I don't think Jonathan has either.
Oh, you should do it.
And we don't hear about it a ton. I don't know if any of our guests have talked about having an executive coach.
I was just thinking that Kay does that.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it something that's kind of common in your industry that people go out when they're starting up a new tech company and they get an executive coach?
I would say it's pretty common in my space. Like the fortunate place to be, like when you are venture backed, is like you do have resources right away. Then everything becomes though about 100xing, like you're chasing like these really big lofty goals. But with that, you're building a team really fast. You're scaling, like the ideal state is you're growing so quickly that things are shifting around you all the time. And like having that extra support, especially like for myself, I'm a first time founder, and CEO. So just like managing not only your team, but your investors' expectations, plus your growth, like there's just a lot there that if it's something that, is accessible to you, most people will do it. And the VC, like the venture capital community usually encourages it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it makes perfect sense because it's such, you're really doing a lot of internal battles. And like you were saying, battling just the confidence to do these different things and then battling the imposter syndrome, especially as a first-time founder. That makes perfect sense to have a cheerleader who can also give you a little direction when you're making these really impactful decisions that are going to, alter your business and other people's lives so much. One thing that I wanted to sort of lean into was that you were talking about your network. And I think that I want to make sure the audience didn't miss that was another piece of insight from your vast experience at all these other companies. It seems like potentially you probably put in some time into building relationships and maintaining those relationships. Do you think that that's a valuable recommendation? And what was kind of your philosophy on that over the years?
Definitely. I kind of have strong opinions about networking. I hate this idea of like, oh, I'm going to go network. It's like the network I've built are people that I've worked with that trust me because I've delivered an amazing work product or I've been a really good partner to work with. And those are the people I know that no matter what, I can call, I can get their feedback. If I need them to test something for my company, they'll do it. Like they'll tell me the truth. But I didn't network those relationships. I built those relationships and then they've become my network. I'm not saying that you can't go out and like meet people and find a mentor and things like that. I just think it's so much easier to do it through building up your own reputation with folks versus going out and like asking people for things. It's like what value can you bring other people? Because everyone's so busy. Everybody has like a million things to juggle. So
right.
I hate that networking.
Yeah, I love how you started it. I actually have a really strong opinion about networking.
It's more like, like building your brand around people that you respect, and then if you do that well, like you'll be able to call those people for the rest of your life.
I think that's great advice.
Doing really solid work.
Yeah, and and it's kind of a little bit of a give and take. Also, you have to be put yourself in a situation where people are able to see your skill set and where you are able to give them value. So obviously at Uber or IBM, or some of these other positions, you're around a big group of people that you are able to have those situations with, and then some people just aren't in those situations where they're, maybe they're in a company that they don't feel there's a lot of people that, might be great mentors for them. So maybe they need to go outside of the circle a little bit more and be a little more extroverted to go for them. But I totally feel you on making sure the lasting relationships are the most valuable pieces of the network. And, just having a little bit of FaceTime with people doesn't always get you to where you need to be. One of the questions that we always like to ask each of our guests is, how would you personally define entrepreneurship?
That's such a good question. I would define entrepreneurship as trying to create any sort of business on your own. That could be anything. It could be starting up my own consulting firm. It could, where I'm selling my services. It could be, buying, investing in a car wash and turning that into your own business. It could be buying 10 doors or properties and building a rental portfolio. I view that as entrepreneurship. It could be going out and trying to raise capital and build a company. So, just putting yourself out there and being the sole, it works or it doesn't work. Everything falls on your shoulders. That's how I view entrepreneurship.
I love that. Was there, when you look back over your years at all these incredible companies, was there a specific piece of advice that you received that you felt was the most impactful, or one or many pieces of advice that you thought really was like, wow, this stayed with me?
I think, the thing that has rung true, and it's going to sound very cliche, but don't give up on your goals. There's always a way. I think one thing that's stuck with me and what I've seen of people I respect and in myself as well is if it's something that you want to achieve and get to, there's a way to get there. If it's not working right now, you might not be going down the right path. So how do you take a step back and reassess how to get there? But don't give up. You run into one roadblock, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And so that's something I take with me all the time.
Yeah, so simple, but I think it's funny when people say that things are, cliche, because it's well, if it's being said over and over, it's
is it kind of true?
There's probably something to it.
Yeah, that's so simple, because I mean, from all the companies that I've started and all the companies that, I've seen, it's just man, there's so many inflection points where this could go either way. And if you don't make it go the way that you want it to go or you need it to go, then it's not going to work out. So however cliche it is, I think that's such a simple but valuable piece of advice. So I think it was awesome.
Yeah. My first thought was back to our guest Grant from a few episodes ago, whose business went to zero 4 times, and he never gave up. So you made me think back on that conversation we had with Grant. That one stuck with me.
Tell me that Grant's business is not at zero now.
I hope it isn't, but I don't know. Maybe hopefully he's not number 5. But no, I think he's doing very well.
It's been good.
Go Grant. We're cheering you on, Grant.
We've had a couple Grants. They've been great. We love the Grants. So tell us the best decision you've made. So, obviously we're making millions of decisions throughout our careers to
marrying my husband.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, wow. Bonus point. You got a shout out for your executive coach, a shout out for your co-founder, and now a husband shout out. You're hitting all the important ones.
Send that timestamp to your husband when this thing comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
No, we just got married, so it's fresh.
Oh, newlyweds. Okay.
I love that.
Congratulations. Talking about having the importance of great partners in your journey.
Boom.
Totally.
So you're a young company. You're still young. You got this huge career out in front of you. What do you have on the horizon? What are you looking forward to in the next 5 years of your career and in your business?
Oh, it's really, I just want to help as many investors and our customers as we possibly can. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but there's a huge opportunity. Things are shifting. I really think Getaway has the opportunity to help more and more Americans get to where they want to be from, freedom of not only finances, but time, and the ability to do what they want to do and spend life the way they want to live life. So our goal is to just help as many, hopefully millions of people over the next few years.
It's just cool to have a business where there's an opportunity to help millions of people. I just think that alone, and just know that there's that scale there, I think is such a cool thing to be able to find find a problem that you're providing a solution for that is so widespread. So good on you. I think that's awesome. What is the sort of parting advice that you'd like to give for our audience of aspiring entrepreneurs to help give them inspiration and courage, like you've been helped by some of your peers along the way?
Yeah, I think taking from my own lessons, it's like you're never going to find out. You're never going to get feedback on like whether positive or areas for improvement if you don't put yourself out there. So taking the leap, putting yourself out there, trying things and getting feedback so that you can iterate is the most important thing. And Jonathan, you hit on this earlier, like the sooner you do this, the better off you are, because as you get older, you have more responsibilities, you have other people to worry about, potentially have children to worry about. So like, stop waiting. Go now. Do it now.
I love that. Yes. We just got our cold open intro picked. Allie talking directly to everyone. Go do it now.
Do it now.
Allie, we all have such different paths to sort of finding our freedom and finding our way. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that we super appreciated you sharing your story with us. I think this is going to come across really inspirational for a lot of people.
Awesome. You guys, this was super fun. Let's help. Let's do it.
Let's go help millions. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to reach out to you. Where should we send them?
Yes. So best place to find me and actually get to me is my LinkedIn. Just check out Allie Nichols. Type in getaway, you'll find me. And then if you want to check out our product, getaway.co, just .co.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Allie. This was really fun.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Allie.
Being an entrepreneur is hard. That's why we created findyourfreedompod.com to compile all the resources you need to find your own freedom.